Hello and welcome. My name is Natty Cash, and we are back once again to Premier League predictions. We're going into match day 7 right before the international break, and let's take a look at the matchups. Last week, it was pretty bad for me. I only got the Arsenal and the Liverpool win as my two correct predictions. Not so great, so let's take an opportunity now to fix that and make some good predictions this week. First off, we've got Crystal Palace versus Liverpool. Liverpool again getting another win on the board, putting themselves top of the table with 15 points after 6 games. Crystal Palace is kind of on the other side where they've been really struggling. They're right now sitting with only 3 points after 6 games, and right now sitting in that last relegation spot based on goal difference. So this one looks to be one-sided, and I wouldn't really see it any other way. Liverpool seems to continue to put wins on the board. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be ugly. Like, I don't think Liverpool's going to score a ton of goals, but they're going to be solid defensively as they've been. So I'm going to maybe just put it as reasonably where they're going to get in most of the possession, but probably about a 2-0 win. And then next up, we have Arsenal hosting Southampton. Again, another scenario where we've got a top team versus a bottom team here. Arsenal sitting in third, only 1 point off the top of the Premier League. They did well to get all 3 points from that Leicester game, winning 4-2. It was late, though, and so there's some concern for Arsenal that when is it going to be a time where they slip? And Southampton, when is it going to be a time where they can get a win on the board? They only have 1 point out of the first 6 games, and it looks tough. And I did predict them to be bottom, but this is tough for them to only have 1 point so far in the season. I am going to give Arsenal a win here. I think they would be pretty dominant. I am going to say they give up a goal, but it might be something like a 3-1 victory or so for Arsenal. I don't see that kind of going any other way. That would be probably one of the biggest surprises if we do see Southampton get any points from this game. Arsenal, pretty dominant, 3-1 victory is my prediction. The next matchup we're going to look at is Brentford hosting Wolverhampton. Again, the Wolves are struggling here. Only 1 point. They're sitting bottom of the table. Is there an opportunity where they can turn things around? I'm not sure. There's going to have to be some good results or maybe some radical changes that happen if this team's going to be able to turn it around. They're going to Brentford, where Brentford's been reasonably decent, sitting about mid-table, 12th position. And one thing to note is that what's decent about what they're doing is that Brentford's, all of their points are coming when they're at home. They've lost all their games going away, but at home they are undefeated. 2 wins and a draw to get 7 points out of 6 matches. So I don't really see that trend changing. One other thing to note is that Wolves, ever since their first matchup against Arsenal, every other game they've scored at least 1 goal. So I am going to give that Wolverhampton gets a goal here. So I'm going to give them a goal, but I do see Brentford maintaining their undefeated record at home, and I do think they're going to be able to pull off and get a win here, and I'm going to call it a 2-1 victory over Wolves. So Brentford with another 3 points on the board. And our next game is going to be Leicester and Bournemouth. Bournemouth are traveling out there after a decent win against, Bournemouth winning against Southampton. And then Leicester having a good game against Arsenal, but ultimately taking the loss. That game against Arsenal, though, is the first time that Leicester has lost by more than 1 goal. All of their other games, whether it's a loss or their 3 draws they have so far, have all been very close, right? All their losses are within 1 goal. And so Leicester are in most of these games, or at least being competitive, but just haven't been able to put the 3 points across. Bournemouth, again, has had a reasonable start. One of the patterns that we see is that they're getting results against people that are below them on the table, not so much when they're above them on the table. So very much sitting in that middle of the pack for a good reason. So It's tough for me to see what's going to happen here. I think regardless, it's going to be a close game, and Leicester could keep that close. What I think I am going to, though, maybe give the slight edge to Leicester. Leicester has had some decent matches against Everton and Crystal Palace, and maybe then Bournemouth is kind of too much for them. But I'm going to then give this as a 1-1 draw. Maybe a little underwhelming for Bournemouth here, but Leicester at home giving that slight edge. They're not going to get 3 points out of it, but they're going to make it close enough where there's going to be a draw. Leicester, Bournemouth, 1-1. Our next matchup here is Manchester City hosting Fulham. And when you look at this matchup, you'd think, okay, well, Man City are actually, they're second in the league. They're doing well. Missing Rodri, of course. But let's take a look, and Fulham are sitting in 6th in the league right now. So they've had a great start to their year. What I see is they're getting wins against teams below them, right? Getting wins against like Newcastle, for example, and then also playing some of the top teams really close, as you saw the first match week where they almost pulled out a draw against Manchester United. So when you look at that, Fulham is certainly not someone that's going to roll over. It's going to be a tight game here, and if Manchester City aren't on it, they could drop points here. I am going to still give the slight edge to Man City here, but I think Fulham's going to be in it. They seem to be scoring goals. I think the only time that they didn't score a goal was in that first match week, so I'm going to see them get another goal, but I am going to give Manchester City just that slight edge. They're going to win that out 2-1. Maybe it'll come back down to a late goal for them to pull out a result there. But Man City will get the 3 points, but Fulham certainly is going to do well this year, and sitting in 6th means they've played well. Unfortunately, they're not getting any points out of this matchup. Next, we have West Ham hosting Ipswich Town. When you look at Ipswich, it's kind of interesting. They don't have a win on the board yet, but they have drawn their last 4 games. When you look at the teams that they drew, other than, say, like Southampton, they drew Aston Villa last week. They've drawn Brighton, and they've drawn against Fulham. So these are decent teams, and Ipswich is doing enough to then get at least a point out of some of these matches. West Ham has also then been struggling. They've got 1 win on the board a few weeks back, but it's been a while, and they're getting some results here and there, right? Getting a draw against Brentford last week. So for me, when I look at this, I don't know if there's too much separating this team right now. I think I would be giving Ipswich maybe more of an edge if they are at home, and giving them a shout potentially to get their first win on the board. I think I'm going to kind of call this a draw. I know Ipswich was 2-2 against Aston Villa last week, but I'm going to give this one also a 2-2 draw as well. So another draw for Ipswich and another draw for West Ham, 2-2 in that game. Next up, we have Everton against Newcastle. Everton getting their first win on the board last week propels them out of the relegation zone for the time being, and Newcastle getting a very good result, getting a draw at home against Manchester City. Again, both teams are maybe looking a little bit up now and seeing if they can build on some of those good results. Everton and Newcastle will be interesting. I don't think there's going to be a lot of goals in this one. Again, Newcastle did well defensively against Man City. But I don't think Everton has enough to then take on Newcastle and be able to get a result here. So I'm going to go with, it's going to be a close game, but maybe just kind of a 1-0 victory against for Newcastle here. Everton's going to look at other matchups as a way of getting points on the board. Do I see this turning into a draw? Potentially, right? I think Everton's been doing well to keep things closer over the last few weeks than they did to start the year, but I do give Newcastle the slight edge. Next up, we have Aston Villa hosting Manchester United. And Aston Villa had a disappointing game in the Premier League last time where they drew at Ipswich Town. Manchester United also didn't play well, losing 3-0 against Tottenham at Old Trafford. And looking at this one, I think the Aston Villa result might be more due to them prepping for the Champions League. Now that they got a win against Bayern Munich, I think the spirits are very high in Aston Villa, and they might come in here with a lot of confidence. Where I don't think Manchester United are going to be doing the same. Coming in to this matchup, like Europe's not as not being in the Champions League doesn't give the same hype, and so I don't think Manchester United is going to do well. I think Eric Ten Hag is going to be could be closely out the door unless there's things that turn around here. I'm going to say that Aston Villa might run away with this, get a few goals on the board. I'm going to state a 3-1 victory for Aston Villa. And who knows, maybe this is the last time we see Eric Ten Hag in front of Manchester United fans. Who knows? But we do see. I am predicting they're not going to get a result here. Next up, we have Chelsea hosting Nottingham Forest. And when I look at this one here, Chelsea are starting to become a good team. I think Cole Palmer is really a great asset to that team, and I think his hot start is going to continue. And Forest has had a decent start to their season, but I think at this point Chelsea are going to be a little bit too strong. I'm going to think that there's going to be lots of goals in this one. I'm going to give it maybe a 4-1 victory for Chelsea. I don't know if Chelsea are as defensively sound, and I think they probably will give up one, but I think there's lots of goals in this game. Chelsea are going to take a commanding win in this, continue to push their way up the table, as right now they're sitting in fourth, right, and not far off the top. So Chelsea with another big win on the table. And our last matchup is Brighton and Hove Albion up against Tottenham Hotspur. When I looking at Tottenham, they've won their last 2 games against Manchester United and Brentford, and they're starting to now tick their way up and start to climb up the table. Brighton have started to stagnate a little bit. The last 4 games they haven't won, right? 3 draws and then that loss against Chelsea. So I think there's a few things that need to be figured out for Brighton. I think Tottenham is the hot hand here. I still expect that there's going to be goals in this, and it could be a close one. I'm going to give I think I'm going to go with, and I know I've done this a couple times, but maybe a 2-1 victory for Tottenham. I think they're starting to climb the table. Brighton need to figure some things out, and I think they're going to take another loss here. So Tottenham with the 3 points in this one. So thank you so much for watching. These are my predictions. If you want to put your own predictions down in the comments, please do so. Please like and subscribe, as that helps build my channel. And I will see you again next time. So bye for now.